Most of you watching have already seen JonTron's video on Takeshi's challenge. It's a great video, and it's the only glimpse many of us had into one of retro gaming's most infamous titles. But, well, in order to keep up the laughs, he rushes through his summary of the game, neglecting to mention an entire section, and he doesn't explain any of the steps, like why you need to divorce your wife, or get blackout drunk, which is to divorce your wife. It's a shame, because this is a game that doesn't need to be embellished. The losing conditions in Takeshi's challenge are some of the best parts. Interestingly, he's not the only one to do this. Game Center CX, a Japanese variety gaming show, was the first to do this in 2003. As a result, much of this game's reputation precedes itself. So much so that all manner of myths have spread like wildfire. In order to demonstrate this, let's quickly walk through the steps to beat the game. Afterwards, I'll explain why we did all that. How to beat Takeshi's challenge. Simultaneously press down an A on the second controller. If your character said hello, it worked. Talk to your boss and collect your bonus. Leave and re-enter, resign from your job, collect severance fee. If you ever die, press A and B simultaneously 3 times to revive with 64 health. This can be used infinitely. Go to the Culture Center, learn to speak Hintabo and how to hang glide. Go to the left district and enter Travel Tamagawa to purchase a ticket to the South Pacific. Go to the right district, next to the bank and theater, then the karaoke bar. Sit at the bar. Have a drink. Another. Reject the third and accept the song. Now go to the karaoke station, select Folk, then Okinawa Yunta. Reign of Tears also works, but it's longer. As the song plays, press A on the second controller periodically. Timing doesn't matter, it's the button count that does. If you are asked to sing an encore, sing it twice more. Otherwise, your streak is broken and you need to have 2 more drinks. You'll be told to stop hogging the mic the 3rd time. Choose to brawl, then beat everyone up. Even the waitress. But save them for last. Only 3 NPCs can be on screen at once. An old man will appear and give you a map. This prompts 6 options. Choose to soak it in water. Leave it for more than 5 minutes, but less than 10, then use the mic. Now for the most important step of the entire guide. Beat up the old man. Sit back down at the karaoke bar. Get blackout drunk on liquor. Approach the violent woman. This is your wife. Divorce her and pay alimony. Go back to your former workplace, crouch by the first potted plant, and pick up the 100,000 yen. Stop by the bank and withdraw your money. The airport is to the right of the bank through an alley. Enter it and walk to the end to fly to the South Pacific. Enter the Pacific Bank and exchange your currency. I recommend you sleep in the deluxe hotel room twice for a health refill. Purchase poetry from the Miyage. Purchase a canteen and a gun from the equipment store. Actually equip the gun. Go to the resort and select the 5th option, hang gliding. Do the shmup section and land on the 4th island. You do this by flying right on top of the ground without touching it. Doing so kills you. Get close to the edge of the screen so you have time to land. It can be finicky. Don't enter any huts and just keep going right until you see a tent on a hill. It will be past the jungle and first mountain. Use a high jump by jumping while crouching to reach the hut. Talk to the hermit in the hut. Give him a present and select the canteen. Go back through the jungle to the village chief's hut. It's the one right besides the jungle. Give him a present and choose poetry. Do not pause, just exit the house or you'll get a game over. Trek through the jungle again to reach the first hill you see. Do a high jump to land on an invisible lip on the top left of the mountain. Do a regular jump to the right. You should be 2 tiles higher and on top of the mountain visually. Crouch. If that didn't teleport you, inch right and crouch again. And repeat until it works or you fall off the mountain. In the cave, you need to crouch in certain spots to progress. They're towards the bottom of the screen, never on floating platforms. Use the pause screen to get rid of enemies if you need to, and remember you can press A and B 3 times while dying to revive at 64 health. Equip the gun if you forgot, it does a lot more damage and is a ranged attack. Obviously. Stay on the windscreen for 5 minutes to receive your reward. Nice job. Okay. You quit your job because it gives you money. We only need a lot of cash at the start, so we don't need to optimize our spending much. So we'll quit now because it's convenient. You learn the Hintabo language so you can understand the NPCs after the shmup section. This isn't strictly necessary since your responses never change, but it makes things a bit easier. And of course, we need to learn hang gliding because otherwise, we cannot reach the island. But aren't there 4 other options to reach the island? Why are we choosing the hang glider? Well, the scuba gear and boat come with the obvious downside of being bound to the water. Not only does this mean you are unable to avoid the birds dive bombing you, but since this is a side-scroller, you can't get past the first island. The hot air balloon can only move left or right, so you can never land or dodge the UFO's bullets. Finally, we have the Cessna. Everything about this seems like the obvious choice. It's a plane! We can move in any direction we please, and it makes this section a breeze. Well, remember we are headed to an island without technology. There's no runway to land on. You'll just crash. So hang glider it is. Yay! Naturally, the only place with a treasure is the South Pacific, but we do have an option to purchase a ticket to Europe, the USA, Africa, or the Middle East. So what happens then? The plane explodes. It just does. Also, going to Africa costs over 2 billion yen? There's a few options when you receive the blank map. If you choose to stare at it, your inputs are disabled for 5 hours, and to add insult to injury, you need to redo the karaoke section afterwards. If you set the map on fire, it does exactly what you would expect, and the old man responds accordingly. If you shout too early or late or input anything besides the mic, the water ruins the map. Dipping it in ink ruins the map. Exposing the paper to the sun is an alternative solution, but it takes an hour to reveal the map. And if you press anything before the map's revealed, it will be ruined. Why is there a discard option? So, if we know where the treasure is, why do we need the map? Well, that's because holding it is the only way to prevent the plane from exploding. The ticket blessing line is doing a lot of heavy lifting. This is also why we need this particular map. The other two, the one from the bookstore and pachinko parlor, are forgeries that do not grant safe travels. Why do we need to beat up the old man? Well, this is single-handedly the most evil thing in the game. If you don't, then when you go to collect the treasure at the end of the game, he will appear and steal it from you. This causes a game over at the last possible second, and you will really need to replay the entire game because of this. This was a Kaizo trap decades before Kaizo traps. The reason you need to get blackout drunk is because it's the only way to divorce your wife. If you go home without getting smashed, then you will smash. Then you won't be given the option to divorce her. And we need to divorce her, because after the shmup section, she will magically appear and teleport you home, telling you to quit this nonsense. The same thing happens with your boss if you don't quit your job, but your severance fee is the only way to afford a ticket to the South Pacific. If either of these happens, you can continue with the game, but you will need to redo the hang gliders section. Interestingly, this reveals plane tickets are reusable, and this makes it possible to afford a ticket to Africa by gambling at the casino in the South Pacific to gain an infinite amount of money with enough luck, i.e. passwords or save states. You can also buy literally everything available this way. Oh, and we pay the wife alimony because if you select Punch, she is literally invincible. This one's obvious, but if you don't exchange your currency, then you cannot buy anything. Attempting to do so will have shopkeepers tell you, "We don't accept your money here." If we can always revive with half health, then why would you sleep in the hotel to heal? Well, our health determines how many bullets we can take in the shmup section, so we want all we can get. And we can't revive here. There's nobody to revive. We don't enter any huts as there's only one way out once you enter. It's by holding up in the specific spot and then you get teleported to the resort and have to redo the shmup section. Death would have been preferable. The poetry is necessary to receive the sacred stone from the village chief, and the canteen is needed to convince the hermit to convince the village chief to accept gifts in the first place. This is why entering the pachinko parlor, wasting 100 balls, spamming the mic when you're low on them, beating up the Yakuza that enter, just one, then you can hide behind the counter until they leave, to receive 5,000 balls, which you can't just buy without playing the game because when you do, it overwrites your previous balance, which is necessary because even if you find the sweet spot, once you win more than 3,840 pachinko balls legitimately, you'll be told, sorry, but you have to stop playing, and kicked off the machine. With these balls, we can purchase a shamisen as it requires 4,000 pachinko balls. But all of that, plus learning how to play it, can be skipped if you just don't enter the hut before giving the chief the canteen, then you never get put into the boiling pot, and thus won't need to escape with a mind-bendingly awesome shamisen performance. If you do end up in the pot and attempt the obvious solution of performing a native social dance, then you will wow the village chief so much that he marries his daughter to you off-screen, resulting in a soft lock. The other options will result in unique dialogue if you have the corresponding skill, but will still cause a game over. And Lunge will free you at the cost of softlocking your save file because the chief won't talk to you afterwards. Finally, you wait on the final screen because it prompts a message telling you not to take this stupid game so seriously. Joke's on you! I made a video about it. Wait. You know what? This game's gotten me into a mean spirit. Let's take out all this anger on JonTron, because, wow, he really did not do good research. And yes, I checked. The most popular guide for this game was released June 18th, 2008. So I don't want to hear any, oh, but there probably weren't any guides, because yes, there was. In fact, Donkey released his video on Takeshi before JonTron did, and he avoided many of John's mistakes. So clearly, the guides were helpful enough, and it demonstrates you can represent the game accurately while still being entertaining. I'll admit, the guide didn't make the optional nature of the pachinko parlor crystal clear, but you would still realize it if you read the entire guide. John should've. This has to be the guide he used. I can tell from the steps he follows. And saw the shamisen was only needed for the section marked optional. It is possible to heal before the hotel. You can do so by drinking tequila at Bar Gold in Japan. This was noted in Dungy's video. Plus, you can press A and B simultaneously 3 times to revive while dying anywhere but the hang glider section. It trivializes health. That was known at the time, but I only saw it mentioned in Deceased Crab's wonderful playthrough of the game. Check it out if you want to see the game in full. This is just a nitpick, but you can avoid the Yakuza in town with well-timed high jumps. Even if you don't avoid damage entirely, you'll likely reduce the damage you take. And I never once saw him high jump in his footage, despite him complaining about the Yakuza attacks. Additionally, he could use the same pause trick he mentions near the end of the video, as it works everywhere minus the shmup section. You can also just crouch. Like, just hold down. You're invisible to them now. You do not have to sing into the microphone, and it is not stupidly precise. This is an NES game. It is not that sophisticated. I know this is the case because you can literally bind the microphone to a single button by holding down an A on the second controller at the same time. This isn't an emulator feature. It is part of the game in case you don't have a microphone for some reason. This is mentioned on that popular guide he very likely used, by the way. Afterwards, pressing A on said controller is identical to using the microphone. The game is only looking for a number of inputs. Too few or too many and you will fail. Nothing else is taken into consideration. In testing, I could consistently clear Okinawa Yunta by pressing A on the second controller anywhere from 14 to 40 times. You also need to press it throughout each verse, not just one of them. The hardware is too limited to analyze your voice. Think of it like the Wii Fit jogging game. All you have to do to play it is shake the controller, but it tells you to put it in your pocket and run for immersion. The game can't tell if you are actually running. All that matters is whether the controller is shaking. And I've saved the worst for last. Passwords work. No strings attached. So you don't need to redo everything to retry the hang glider section. I mean, in the video itself, he goes to the password screen, makes a joke about it, but then never even tries to see if it works? Press pause anywhere, minus the shmup section, select end, and it will give you a password. Inputting it gives you back your health, items, money, and remembers which section you're in. I figured this out without looking it up, and I've barely played any NES games in my life. John has played many and couldn't. If he really took 2 years to beat this game, I don't see why he wouldn't have explored all the options available to him, especially when there's strong evidence the feature exists. To clarify, my critiques aren't meant to imply John is a liar or a bad content creator. In fact, what he did is impressive. Yeah, John didn't intend on doing a challenge run, but the fact he beat the game in that manner is no less remarkable. But he absolutely didn't have to for his video. As a result, he wasted a lot of his time that could have been spent doing anything else. And that's really funny. Plus, over 10 million people now believe misconceptions surrounding the game, which isn't great either. So now that that's out of my system, I'd like to remind you it was still a very funny, well-made video. It's certainly better than anything I've made.
Uranus's severed ball sack.
My critiques are in good fun. If I wanted to cancel JonTron, I don't think accusing him of wasting his own time by not reading a guide properly is the best way to do it. At least, that's what this elephant in the room is telling me. But what if someone did try to beat Takeshi's challenge without a guide? What would that look like? Well, obviously I did not do that. Still, we can theorize how it would be achieved. And to do this, we need to turn to the most evil part of Takeshi's challenge, the hints. One form of these was noted by JonTron, the commercials advertising the game. However, there's a much better way within the confines of the game itself. Talking. You can chat with NPCs for hints on how to beat the game. Not just any NPC though, most don't actually have anything useful to say. In this case, the NPC Hivemind has a pool of dialogue it cycles through. The useful dialogue requires talking to a specific NPC a specific number of times with a specific tone selected. This is due to the invisible temper mechanic. In other words, it's obtuse, annoying, and at step 1 we are already making a huge leap in logic by assuming a new player can figure out exactly how this works. Because to ensure you find all 24 hidden dialogues, it requires talking to every NPC 8 times with a threatening tone and 4 with the normal. So let's take the information these asinine tasks provide to solve the seemingly impossible title. I did not discover any of this. It is all documented on the Cutting Room Floors page for the game in glorious detail. And naturally, some of this will be speculation or outright straw grasping, so just bear with me. How to beat Takeshi's challenge. As an insane purist who refuses to use any guides and somehow figured out one of the game's most obtuse mechanics in order to get hints on how to progress.
I don't have any money. Isn't there a treasure map somewhere?
If a treasure map exists, we can probably collect it. We spawn right in front of our boss, so naturally we would talk to him. We later learn we need lots of money, and real-world knowledge tells us a severance fee is normal when quitting. So, from the treasure map, we can infer we need to go to the South Pacific. There's a larger landmass to the north and one to the south with islands in between.
If you're a man, then learn art.
Hints at the culture center's importance. Foreign places tend to speak different languages. However, there are no practical languages offered for the South Pacific, only one called Hintabo. The name is a literal hint.
I love karaoke. There's a strange old man in the karaoke snack.
I couldn't find direct hints for this, but I have a few theories. First, word of mouth. I can see someone choosing to get a drink here, being offered a refill, accepting it to see what it does, and when the player realizes it's useless, they will reject the third, and then be asked if they want to sing a song. Second, we also know that singing is needed based off of a commercial, and this is the only karaoke bar in the game. But the machine is allegedly broken when you try using it. 3. The sign says 1 song 300 yen. Perhaps the number 3 is significant in some way. The commercial lets us know which song to sing, or at least one of them, and that we need to sing along into the microphone. Assuming something special will happen the third time we do it right ties into the 1 song for 300 yen sign. And we're consistently a terrible human being, so it's probably safe to assume we need to brawl. As for a more world-friendly explanation, we know there's a mysterious old man, but he hasn't shown up after our performance, implying we have yet to impress him. If karaoke didn't, then perhaps showcasing our battle prowess will.
5 minutes is short.
We know to soak the map in water and blow into the microphone due to the commercial. As for pummeling the old man, we could question his motives. I mean, who gives out a real treasure map and just lets us keep it after we reveal its contents, without wanting anything in return? Again, we're awful. We already have the map, so let's just assume we should beat him up. What's he gonna do? Take it from us? Honestly, I can see the intended solution being trial and error as a cruel joke. I don't put it past this game. Or rather, Takeshi.
Hey Yoshikawa, I got married too.
This dialogue hints we're married if the player hasn't found their home or gotten blackout drunk yet. You eventually find out the hard way what happens if we continue while married. But going home doesn't give us an option to divorce our wife. So how can we piss her off enough to demand one? You can infer alimony is the solution based on real life, and the realization that domestic abuse did nothing. You can maybe assume we have a secret stash due to the signs of a strained relationship with our wife, i.e. when we show up drunk again. So, naturally, it'd be somewhere away from the wife and somewhere we regularly visit. I am really grasping at straws here though. In place of the last step, we would assume this real catch of an ex-husband has a banking account we can withdraw money from at the bank near his work. We know it's safe to fly now because the real treasure map says ticket blessing, and this prevents the random plane explosion. By talking to island shopkeepers, we know we need to exchange our currency. Common sense tells us sleeping at a hotel heals us, and health good. Plus, 99% of people won't know the revival dying trick. Although, 99% of people wouldn't have figured out how to get here on their own, so I don't know what point I'm making.
The natives of Chopperin Island treat embroidery as treasure.
Lets us know to purchase the embroidery, aka the poetry in the English translation. The correct treasure map says wet sage. Canteens hold water. So, buy a canteen. You did not just buy a gun without looking for a way to equip it. Not in this game.
You can't do anything with a plane without a runway.
Indicates that the Cessna is a beginner's trap.
Things like riding on the wind are just splendid.
What else on this list rides on the wind?
There's a red country on the other side of the sea.
The real map says Breeze 4 Beach, so we know to land on the 4th island, and we can infer that the breeze is significant. And oh, look, it spawns right above the beach of the 4th island.
If you enter a native's house, you won't be able to escape.
Is a clue that you seemingly softlock yourself after entering a native's hut. This is my biggest stretch yet. You can maybe infer it's possible to jump higher when you see this mountain with a shrine that you can't reach with a normal jump. And if you get really stuck, you might think about how people kinda crouch first before jumping, so maybe that'll make you go higher? I don't know. It's possible this was a mechanic in other games around that time, and it relies on the player having that knowledge. Although, this game was released in December 1986, so that's probably false, unless some arcade game did that. The Hermit's Abode is referred to as a shrine. The treasure map said Wet Sage. The old man is the only one in the shrine. We can assume they are a sage, and canteens hold water. Give him water. The only way I can see someone finding the chief's hut is trial and error. Especially with the previous hint of not entering a native's hut. There's nothing to indicate this is different, so yeah.
The natives of Chopperin Island treat embroidery as treasure.
Go find the sacred stone!
The sage will tell you to consult the village chief for the sacred stone after giving him the canteen. With no other options, you can assume the sage put in a good word for you with the chief, giving you a chance to get a word in edgewise with a gift.
The 23rd.
The literal translation implies counting 23 skinny things. There are no other numerous skinny things apart from these jungle trees. Once you discover the Japanese bunker, you'll naturally talk to this guy until he coughs up that
It feels good to take a dump at the top of a mountain.
Paired with the other hint,
Shit is your guide to the underground.
We can infer that the mountain must be really important, and it looks like you're taking a dump when you crouch. So, we crouch on the mountain. Duh.
The first time is above the big rock. The The second level is below the third rock.
There's seemingly no way to progress after entering the cave at the end, so you'll realize these comments are clues on how to progress, even though they are remarkably unhelpful in a rocky cave. Maybe waiting 5 minutes on the end screen does something too? I mean, there's so little to it, and other parts of the game have had timers, so surely there's something more to this ending. I don't know what I was expecting. The most insidious part of Takeshi's challenge is the fact that it technically gives you the tools to succeed. But in the end, you just aren't good enough. Obviously, this is ridiculous! However, I do wonder how this game would be received if it were released today. It was quite innovative in a lot of areas, and I think watching a community come together to try and solve this game would be a fascinating experience. It'd be akin to the likes of unlocking the lost in The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. For the uninitiated, this community puzzle required you to lose the game to a sacrificial room while holding the missing poster trinket. Doing so caused a puzzle piece to appear on your last will. The community was supposed to collect all of the pieces to ultimately form 4 images of other last wills, which showed you how to unlock the game's final and hardest character. I bring this up to illustrate that the steps to beat Takeshi's challenge are essentially the same thing, just replace the puzzle pieces with the knowledge of each step, and, hopefully, without data mining the solution. It's impressive for a game released way back on December 10th, 1986. That's only a little more than a year after the original Super Mario Bros. Unsurprisingly, however, the game's cruel design is what truly stuck with players. After all, the old man stealing the treasure at the end is potentially the first Kaizo trap in gaming history. The obscurity of the cryptic hints and the direct insults thrown at the player probably didn't help either. Other titles, such as Tower of Druaga, are fondly remembered by some for its obtuse puzzle solutions, which encouraged players to share them among one another. It was also one of the first titles to feature action RPG mechanics in a video game, preceding Hydlide, Wise, and The Legend of Zelda. All of this was of course expanded on by Zelda, making Takeshi's cryptic secret seem even lamer by comparison. It also helps those games generally wouldn't softlock your save file for experimenting. With this in mind, the infamous legacy of Takeshi's challenge isn't really a surprise. It's just fascinating to me how it at least had the potential to be radically different. But despite the legacy talk, I'm not done with this game just yet. We're only halfway through the video. We have a lot of in-game trivia to touch on. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed I have yet to showcase all 24 hidden messages. This is because they provided general hints rather than how to progress. So let's take a look at them.
If you die, then 3 times. In gold, they have the choicest sake.
One is a vague clue for the revive trick, and the other indicates the tequila at Bar Gold heals you.
Be quiet in the pachinko parlor.
The other couple of dialogues is a hint for spamming the microphone while playing in the pachinko parlor, which indicates to me that obtaining the shamisen and learning to play it aren't supposed to be optional, but are due to an oversight. Thank God. The pachinko parlor is uniquely frustrating in that you can't just hold down the button to launch your balls. This is because the launch power is determined by how long you hold the button. This means you have to press the A button 100 times. If you hold the button for too long, it will take longer to fall, and it will then have a chance to give you more balls, compounding the need for quick and short presses by mashing. It's a remarkably subtle way of toying with the player. I'd be impressed if it wasn't so painful.
The daikon route is cheap.
We still don't know what this means. It's translated accurately, it's just really vague. Let me know your theories. For those of you who don't know, you are currently watching a remake of my series of videos on Takeshi's challenge. I highlighted an unsolved mystery in them. 3 of the special lines of dialogue were completely undocumented. Thanks to the editor, Isabel Chiming, we now know where 2 of them are located and what all 3 of them say, so thanks. But the answer will disappoint you.
3rd, in front of Compass Rock.
This one is supposed to be a hint on how to reach the final floor of the treasure cave. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think the area you need to crouch at looks anything like a compass rock. Whatever that is.
Only the chief of Chopperin Island is a human.
This hint doesn't tell us which hut is the chief's, and the hermit is a required interaction that tells us the chief is important. So also useless.
There are Imperial Japanese soldiers hiding on the island.
This one is moot when you can just follow the other hints to reach the bunker and find this out directly. It does help point you in the right direction of where the 23rd hint applies though. Like most things in life, the answers to the mystery were pretty lackluster. But at least we now know there's nothing cool hiding in the shadows. There's an easier way to beat the game than playing it. If you throw 30,720 punches on the title screen, you can get warped to the final area of the game. That's over 8 hours of mashing A. This means that Takeshi's challenge is so easy, a paperweight can almost beat it. Pausing doesn't just despawn enemies, it impacts all entities. So you can erase bullets or your latest bonus from work. It also refreshes stores, allowing you to buy something else without leaving and re-entering. You're welcome, speedrunners. Feelin' frisky? Grab a porno mag from the bookstore. If that's not your style, you can purchase Das Kapitel, a fake treasure map, a dieting book, or Takeshi's autograph. Sitting in the 4th chair in the movie theater will cause you to drop your money. This tends to be around 50,000 yen. Oops. Sitting anywhere else just makes you exclaim, "This film sucks." If you try to go back home after getting a divorce, your ex-wife will tell you, "You don't live here anymore," and you'll be kicked out. Like any good pachinko parlor, if you go to the right of the entrance and hold up, you'll get warped to your neighbor's house for some reason. In the barbershop, you can pay to get a life-changing haircut, because they accidentally cut your face, dealing 32 damage. If you have exactly 32 health, it will kill you, and either way, you won't get a refund. You can also get a perm and dye your hair, but the detail must be really fine, because I can't see a difference. If you deposit your money at the South Pacific Bank, you can't get it back. Withdrawing it does nothing. No need to despair, however, because defeating an NPC and punching their body will give you 300 yen when it despawns. Because of this, it is possible to legitimately go to the South Pacific without quitting your job, but it will require mugging 334 NPCs to get the 100,000 yen necessary to purchase the plane ticket. If you tell your boss you're taking a vacation or a sick leave before your resignation, you'll get a verbal lashing instead of a severance fee. Punching your boss is perfectly fine, however. The Sacred Stone does more than just grant you access to the final area of the game. It's also a weapon. Using it launches a stone projectile in a straight line, exactly like the gun, but it moves much slower. It hurts as much as a bullet, though. I mentioned this earlier, but if you choose to stare at the treasure map, your controls are locked. I left out that over 5 hours, a few Easter eggs will appear. After the first hour, a message that reads,
That brings us to the end of today's broadcast.
appears, and a few seconds later, the screen goes dark. After 3 hours, a TV test pattern appears with no dialogue. An hour after that, it reads,
Good morning.
and you regain control of the salaryman and the karaoke snack. This wasn't a rare feature at the time, but for those curious, the endgame option just softlocks you, telling you to turn off the console. I never understood the purpose of this in games. Usually, passwords don't remember your location and just put you at the start of an area. Well, there's a caveat to this. As you can see from my foot— Huh. Okay. An observant player can exploit this behavior of passwords to escape a native's hut without consequence. Now, moving on. Wait, what? Uh-huh. Okay. Well then, let's look into this.
Bouton, il n'y en a aucun qui marche! Bon, attends, du calme, on panique pas et on utilise le mot de passe. Alors voilà.
I see the confusion now. Well, he shows off the password he used, so let's give that a shot. And I am outside the hut. I have the exact same items, money, and health. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. I did also test this on a fresh save, and unsurprisingly got the same result. It seems Joueur du Grenier lied to embellish the bit, which worked, but adds on to the dogpile of making this game seem harder than it really is. Still, entertaining videos. They have English subtitles if you're interested. They're worth a watch. There are 3 other songs you can sing at the karaoke bar in addition of Rain of Tears. There are Okinawa Yunta, Cat Experience, and Hato Popo. Okinawa Yunta can be sung instead of Rain of Tears, while the others have to be encores to count towards the streak. Trying to sing any of the 21 other songs results in the dialogue,
Sorry, we don't have that.
with all 5 traditional songs being unavailable. In Japanese, there aren't any lowercase/uppercase letters. There are, however, a lot more characters, so the English translation adds lowercase letters for the explicit purpose of having enough characters for the password screen. Although, not all lowercase letters are there, like L, U, V, Y, or O, which meant I had to draw them myself for the thumbnails. Opening the inventory cancels the momentum of your jump, causing you to fall straight down. This is mostly useless, but it's handy when trying to scale the mountain at the end of the game. You can actually land on any of the islands you see in the shmup section. Most of them are a trap, with some even containing native huts to lock yourself in. Case in point, if you land on the first island, you can find a hidden heart there. But since there's no huts to return to the resort, collecting it will softlock your game. However, the third island is very special. For one, it uses this nice blue color palette. It is also the only island to contain a shrine like the fourth one does, and if you enter it, you will be unable to talk to the sage inside. But once you exit, you will emerge from the first shrine you see on the fourth island, allowing you to skip the last stretch of the shmup section, and bypass one of the trips through the jungle on the island. Crouching is a useful tool in the earlier sections of the game because enemies can't hit you if you're squatting. Eventually, most enemies will wander off if you do it for long enough, allowing you to get by unscathed. This is necessary as enemies can still hit you while jumping. Naturally, crouching is useless against animals, monsters, and children due to their small size. After obtaining the gun, you can crouch and shoot simultaneously. You can stand in the tree leaves if you use a high jump. Perfect for punching monkeys. You've all been dying to know, what's in the Grilled Mormon store? Alcohol. Lots and lots of alcohol. This explains a lot, honestly. On a more serious note, the alcohol does nothing. Aside from wasting your cash, anyways. The same applies to nearly every item in the game. For example, anything from the confectionery, barbershop, library, Seagull Theater, and Club Akemi are useless red herrings. I would say the same about Yaosho and Tachibana Flowers, but you inexplicably can't enter them. And to get back to Grilled Mormons, the eccentric title is the result of a pun. Grilled horomon is a Japanese dish, and well, it sounds like Mormon. Learning Hintabo is completely useless. Not only are your choices not scrambled, but you can translate the text yourself. It's scrambled via a Caesar cipher with a key of +1, so just move each letter back in the alphabet by 1. It's way easier to just learn Hintabo in-game, but it's neat it's not total gibberish. I imagine this is done to save memory rather than be a cool detail, but take that with a grain of salt. I'm no programmer. You can get a heart by pressing up at the first jungle tree. You can refresh it by entering the chief's hut, but do not walk to the right while inside, or you will receive a game over. Another heart can be found on the final floor of the treasure cave. Just crouch where you spawn in and it will appear above you. There's allegedly one other secret heart in the game, but I have no idea where. Probably in the South Pacific. A commenter, Waylon Wallace, reminded me there's a fascinating warp glitch you can perform to skip almost the entirety of the game. I'll link to an any % speedrun of the game so you can see it in action. It cuts the game down to around 6 minutes. On the shmup section, if you fire a bullet when an enemy is on top of its spawn point, then the bullet will pierce them, allowing you to hit a second enemy, or end up defenseless for even longer. This is because there's a 1 bullet limit on the screen. Keep it in mind, and it can be a blessing rather than a curse. Speaking of the shmup section, have you wondered what lies beyond the fourth island? Well, let's find out together. Oh, a new enemy? That's neat. Wonder why it's a plane though. And there's an awful lot of them. Wait, what? What? No! You cannot land anywhere from what I could tell. If the planes don't get you, the gargantuan mountain will. There's a chunk of unused content for the game, such as a game over screen of prison cells, and some assets that suggest more was initially planned for the game's ending. Check out the Cutting Room Floors page for more info. I'm trying to avoid stealing everything from it, plus it's a good read. Do note it is technically a not safe for work article. Some of that, unused content involves some creatively placed pixels. Can we just appreciate the amount of profanity in this game? It is so funny to see from such an early video game. We can even say it ourselves to an NPC, an authority figure no less. Or have our own kids curse us out. We must be a great dad. I can tell, because they can beat us to death too. We can also just gun down NPCs like in Grand Theft Auto, which wouldn't be released until November 28th, 1997. You can call Takeshi's Challenge a bad game all you like, but you gotta admit, it did a lot of firsts. Not all of them good, but they are firsts. Although it is worth pointing out that the fan translation seems to be a little excessive with the swearing, such as with "the poop will lead you to the underground" hint. But in quite a few cases, the language is rude enough to be interpreted as a swear. So Takeshi's Challenge was really just the pioneer of domestic violence in video games, rather than any funny fuck words. Which is not so funny when I put it that way. Huh. Wait, where are you going? We're not done here. This game has a mobile port, and it has exclusive content. Since Takeshi's Challenge was released in 1988, a lot has changed in the world. The most important of these developments, of course, was mobile gaming. So it's no surprise that Taito wanted a piece of the pie and decided to try their luck with a mobile port of Takeshi's Challenge on August 15th, 2016. Amusingly, it was first announced on April 1st, 2016 as an obviously fake VR version of the game. I'll link to it in the description, it's a fun read. The bottom of the page confessed it was a lie, but they did intend to re-release Takeshi's Challenge for smartphones via an upcoming Taito Classics lineup. They even commemorated the release with this magnificent t-shirt, which was sadly a limited run. There is a banner of the game over screen too, but it's lame in comparison if you ask me. Not only was this a mobile port and first re-release of one of the most infamous NES titles of all time, but it brought with it new content, and it never released outside of Japan. It's probably hard to tell from my voice, but I'm not actually Japanese. And the port is so obscure that no ROMs exist online. So, how can I play this thing? Oh, I have an idea! I can use today's sponsor! Well, that didn't work. I'll cut to the chase. I need to change the region of my Apple ID in order to download the game. Because yes, I'm doing this on my phone, without peripherals or emulation. And let me tell you, changing that was a headache. I had to cancel all subscriptions and jump through a slew of other obnoxious hurdles. Plus, I haven't been able to change it back to download any apps since I started this series, and can't until I finish it. So take note of the great sacrifices I'm making for my content. Afterwards, I celebrated by purchasing a gift card for my good Japanese friend. Why didn't you just make a second Apple ID? Oh. That works. Hindsight's 20/20, I guess. From there, I can download the app no problem, and oh right, I almost forgot. I don't know Japanese. Well, let's hope the choices didn't get moved around. Let's start with the smaller changes. The game advertises itself as having widescreen support, and I mean, it's not wrong. The app hasn't been updated for newer phones, so my view actually looks like this. Not all maps have been extended to accommodate the new resolution either. Even the blank title screen. In this case, there's a border. It should look familiar, as I've used a recreation of it since the beginning of this series. Not only that, but the spawning mechanics are unchanged. Rather than emerging from the edges of the screen, enemies pop in between the edge and the player. Same for despawning. So the widescreen ultimately looks quite bad and serves little gameplay benefit. I also accidentally had rotation lock on for half of my footage, so it's more annoying to edit with since I can't copy-paste the same crop settings to all the clips. Somehow, I'm sure the game is to blame. Mercifully, the port replaces passwords with a normal save and continue function. Although, it works the same as the old system, just without the need for inputting a password. So it's much faster, but still not nearly up to modern standards, especially since it still doesn't remember your exact location. I'm sure that won't come into play later. The airport now lets you select where to fly. This is largely pointless, as you can't afford to go to both the South Pacific and USA in one playthrough. Buying both tickets costs literally all available money. Oh, yeah, you can go to the USA. We'll get to that. The only edge case to this is if you don't divorce your wife, get rich at the casino, clear the shmup section, then get launched back to Japan by your wife. But okay, enough stalling, let's talk about the juicy stuff. We have a whole new country to explore. Immediately, I gotta say, this place is nuts. And I want it on my wall. Tragically, we can't actually enter this building, but I will forever cherish the image it has left me with. What we can do is enter the poker tower. But first, let's go next door. Ah, Poker Burger, truly the epitome of American culture. From here, we can order one of 4 meals. Even though I can't read Japanese, I know a friend who can. So I asked her to painstakingly translate everything new to the mobile port, within reason. Thank you, Sasha. We can order a hamburger set, a cheeseburger set, big burger set, and a supersize set. The first 3 heal a heart if you purchase them, and the supersize set causes you to exclaim, "Eating too much is bad," and deals a heart of damage. Now that we've grabbed a bite, let's go visit that fancy tower. I hear there's a celebrity at the top. The lobby contains some bodyguard-looking fellas who attack us on sight, so we make a break for the stairs. Oh, yeah. It is a tower. Multiple floors do make sense. Yup, multiple floors. Oh, look, we have a change of scenery. There's a window now. Floor 20, that must be at the top, right? Oh, well, there's guards here, so I guess the next one is. Okay, I see how you're gonna play, but I'm not giving up. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 73 floors. Holy crap, that took like 10 minutes to walk. Most floors don't have anything, except for every 20th or so containing some bodyguards. So it's not even like a pit of 100 trials, it's just a test of patience. Our reward? The president's room. I guess it's like a presidential suite. But man, it feels good to get to the end. And this Takeshi mural is pretty rad. Wait, who is this? Tall golden tower, blonde hair, time is money, celebrity, president's room. When did this port come out again? Oh my god, Donald Trump is in Takeshi's challenge. Yeah, so if you talk to the Donald Trumps, he will ask you, "Are you poker's Mikataka?" But he says "omae" in place of "you," which is basically a condescending masculine way of saying "you." And Mikataka means ally/friend, so he's asking if we're an ally of the tower. If you tell him no, then he goes, "Yeah, help!" Then a bunch of bodyguards enter the room. If you say yes, then he goes, "Habu a good journey." Literally, have a good journey in English. Understandably, this stumped Sasha for a while. But the consequences of this act are dire, for you become the Donald Trumps. This completely pacifies all enemies in the game and changes your face to the American ideal. So naturally, I establish myself as the superior Donald Trumps and punch my predecessor before heading back down the 73 flights of stairs. Very, very slowly. Which made me acutely aware of the fact my new identity is nothing more than a disguise. For when I enter a new screen, there's a frame where I catch a glimpse of my past life staring back at me. It should prove useful for the rest of the game, though. So let's go back to Japan and put our unfathomable American charms to use. Because if there's one thing I know, it's that foreigners respect Americans. Even the regular American citizens are pacified by my looks. I really have assimilated into society. The melting pot theory triumphs again. Oh, it just vanishes at the airport. after walking 146 flights of stairs. Okay. Oh, my sources tell me I am a big stupid idiot and did not see the Great American Desert. Let's go check that out then. You can access it by holding up to the right of Poker Burger, which I should have checked myself. Whoops. There's a lady by this watchtower who consistently says something like, "Let's change up the mood a little." That's probably translated wrong though. Walking further, we're bombarded by cobras and scorpions before hitting a wall. The wall. And if we punch it, the guard atop it shouts a couple of lines. The first one we translated no problem. You can't go any further from here. The second, Hachi Jumanbon. If you can get it, you might be able to do it. Yeah, I need help from you guys in the comments. I didn't find anything else in the desert, so that concludes our time in this capitalist hellscape. Now let's see what else this port has to offer. First, I want to beat the game normally to see if anything else changed. And, well, not really. Except for one thing, the shmup section. It's a nightmare on this port. The poor widescreen implementation makes it really hard to tell where enemies spawn from and how far you can move. Trying to move with this little dial is awful too. I usually lagged on my movement because it's so clunky. The barely modernized saves don't help either. You have to walk from the airport to the resort every single time you want to retry the shmup section. But despite all that and some atrocious early attempts, I somehow beat it in less than 10 tries. I was prepared to buckle down for hours on end, but somehow it all just clicked on this run and I cleared it far earlier than I'd anticipated. The knowledge I had from the NES version was a gargantuan help. Knowing that it's better to fly past the pigeons rather than shoot all of them, and that gaining altitude early on made the rest of the section drastically easier, as most enemies spawn towards the bottom. I really can't emphasize how caught off guard I was. But sadly, nothing was different from this point onwards. So I only verified the rest of the game was unchanged in the port. Yay! There's other additions to the port though. Namely, a couple of new modes, and their microtransactions. One of them is hard mode, and at a glance, it's a shameless cash grab. All it does is double the health and damage of enemies. Since you can still revive no problem, it's nothing more than a nuisance. Wow, that's stupid. I paid for this? Well, the shmup section should be a breeze then. Just don't get shot by the UFOs, right? Right? Why is nobody telling me I'm right? Yeah. So I tried over a dozen times, and I couldn't even get past the first island. I'd be fine with the difficulty if it weren't for the terrible save and continue feature. Each death is a trek from the title screen to the checkpoint master, then from the airport all the way to the resort. Add on I can't tell where my movement boundaries are, the controls feel super sluggish due to the awful movement options causing me to fat finger them all the time, and the sheer number of enemies. And I can't just throw in the towel either. The store page notes that hard mode restores the original ending. It's not documented online, so beating it is my only option for this video. Quite the pickle indeed. Well, this is where I mentioned the other mode that got added. Invincibility! Quick reminder, it's a microtransaction. Afterwards, you can toggle it anytime the inventory is accessible. And it works on the shmup section. Mostly. I gave it an earnest shot legitimately, but I'm not finishing this video anytime soon without invincibility. Plus, delaying a video just for the sake of my ego is silly. I already beat the section on normal mode with touch controls legitimately, which is more than JonTron ever did. Now, let's turn the tables on the game, because these stupid birds had it coming. Time for touchdown. Ah, shit! Anticlimactically, the rest of the game is unchanged. At least, until the ending. Does it finally live up to the grandiose expectations? Was the original ending of the game a limitation of nothing more than time or technical constraints? I mean, we have assets that suggested other endings were planned, so finally, we can see them in action! Oh, my sweet summer child. Finally, the port adds a minigame called Hintabo Test. It's accessed via the title screen, so let's give it a look. Ah, right, X. Oh? X again. Ugh, I didn't want to have to do this, but you've left me no choice. Sasha, what does this say? Great. So I pressed random answers and was ranked 6 out of 10 in Hintabo. You can share your scores on social media if you like spamming people's feeds with content they don't want to see, otherwise this serves no purpose. Which is a fitting note to end on. This was a port nobody expected or wanted, but we got it anyway. And I'm glad we did, because it's really funny. And in a sense, this is the most fitting platform for Takeshi's challenge. The only improvement from here is motion controls or VR, but we'll have to hold out for those. If by any chance you want to play Takeshi's challenge, you may be interested in seeing what Retro Achievements has to offer, like beating the game without revives or pausing, discovering secrets, and more to really put your skills and knowledge to the test. It also helped me find a few secrets for this video, so thanks for that, Griffin. Special thanks to these commenters who helped improve this video with feedback, trivia, and corrections. Please tell me when I'm wrong so I can do better. I'm done with Takeshi's challenge, thank God. It was way more fun than I expected, but I'm still eager to move on to other projects. They'll be smaller in scope for a while. Turns out redoing the audio for 3 videos is no small feat and required extensive re-editing. Plus, you know, all of the additions. As always, I would appreciate any support on Ko-fi so I can feed myself and put your name in the credits, but regardless, have a good day or night, viewer.